What's up, everybody? Kyle Barboza here, bass player, music educator, and today we're going to talk about getting your walking bass lines from here to here. So since walking bass is almost always played in 4/4 time, I'm going to give you 4 pieces of advice for how to improve your sound when you're walking, and then I'm going to give you 4 kind of melodic concepts that with a little bit of practice can be coming through your amp in no time. All right, so here we go. My first piece of advice for playing walking bass, whether it's in Stevie Ray Vaughan style blues or straight ahead jazz, is to make sure that all of your notes are long and connected. In other words, don't leave any space between your notes. Okay, so with your right hand, make sure you're not stopping the string between articulations like this. Even if it's a little bit of space. It's not bad, but it's still not ideal. Check it out with no space between the notes. Okay? Piece of advice number 2. When it comes to your dynamics, I would lower your dynamics a little bit when you're walking in terms of like your standard volume. So in other words, where rock music and funk, you're probably playing from a dynamic range of like mezzo forte to fortissimo, which is like medium loud to really loud. Your standard volume when you're walking should probably be more like a mezzo piano or like pretty soft, so that you can give yourself room for accents and headroom for dynamic changes, but also because the articulation sounds a little better when you're playing softer. Listen to the difference. Here's like mezzo forte, forte. Okay? Here's mezzo piano. Just got a little more of that p sound in the articulation and less of that snap of the string. Of course, when the band's really cooking, you're going to be playing loud like that. That's fine. All that string snap and all that stuff that you don't want when the band is not loud, that'll kind of get lost in the mix and it'll be fine. But your standard volume, keep it a little lower when you're playing walking bass. Piece of advice number 3. Speaking of articulation, when it comes to your EQ, I would dial up your low-mid control a little bit for when you're playing walking bass. Now, a lot of players like to favor their back pickup, like their bridge pickup a little more, because it has a little more of a, like if you dial the treble back with it, so they'll go to the bridge pickup and then dial the treble back a little bit because it's got a little more of that p sound that I was talking about before. It almost is reminiscent more of an upright bass sound. You can even kind of dial that up a little bit by pushing up your low mids. So that's like if you have a frequency control or you got like a 9-band EQ, I'm talking like 175 to 250 hertz, somewhere in there. Or if you got a low mid control on your amp, it's that. I would put that up like 3 dB and see, or just a little bit, you know, from like 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. See how that sounds. It'll just give you a little more articulation, and it'll kind of take away some of the thinness of the electric bass. It'll make your notes a little bit fatter. All right, finally, piece of advice number 4. This one's a big one. When you're dealing with chord changes that are a measure long or less, so I'm talking about a chord change that's 4 beats long or 2 beats long. After you hit that root note, your job is to start setting up the next chord, okay, rather than exploring that chord. So let's say you've got a D minor 7 flat 5, okay, and then that's leading into a G7 flat 9. So this is a minor 2/5 in C minor. So D minor 7 flat 5. And then G minor 7 flat 9, G7 flat 9. Those are my chord tones. Once I hit that D on the D minor 7 flat 5, I'm already starting to think about how I'm going to set up my root note for the next chord. How am I going to lead myself, or whatever chord tone I'm going to start the next measure on? How am I going to lead myself? How am I going to outline that next chord? All right? Of course, I'm not going to use chord tones from the next chord to do that. I'm going to be using chord tones and chromatic approaches from my D minor 7 flat 5, but my mentality is I'm looking forward to the next chord and I'm setting that up right away. Okay? So instead of getting this kind of sound where I'm kind of exploring D minor 7 flat 5, and then I hit my G on the downbeat, so, and then I hit the next root note on C minor, that's kind of like a beginner sound to me. That's a little bit janky. Check it out when I actually set up the next chord. Ready? Okay, so that already has a little more movement to it. It's got a little more momentum. It's leading the band through the chord changes instead of going chord change to chord change to chord change. Okay, so on to 4 melodic ideas that you can use to make your walking lines sound a little more hip. And a lot of these are just concepts I've kind of transcribed and pulled from other bass players. Ray Brown would be a great one to listen to. He's the father of jazz bass. Christian McBride is a modern player that is just an incredible walking bass player. So those are guys that you can definitely listen to. And one of the things I notice about their playing is that they use a lot of chromatic approaches. That is, when they're approaching the next chord, they're utilizing the note that's a half step away, either a half step above it or a half step below it, to approach that chord. And it just sounds hipper than just using the chord tones. So I'm going to show you a few ways to actually do that. Here's the first one. Let's take a 2-5-1 in B flat major. And by the way, 3/4 of the time we play walking bass, the way the chords move is going to be in fourths. So from C to F, that's a fourth. Or a fifth down. So a fifth down. And then to the next one's going to be another fourth. So we're going in fourths for a 2-5-1. Those are our roots. Or down a fifth. Right? That's most of the chords that we have to connect. So these 4 pieces of advice are going to work, especially on those type of connections. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first one. This one is going to be to go up the scale 1 note, go up the scale another note, so up the scale 2 notes, and then chromatically approach the next chord. So here we're going up a fourth to F, so I'm going from C to here, to this F, and I'm going to do it by going up 2 notes in the scale. It's a minor scale, right? This is Dorian scale. And then chromatic approach to F. Okay? It just gives it a little more smoothness to the walking bass line. You can do that on all 3 chords. Check it out. Up, and then a chromatic approach all the way to B flat. So really it's, okay, I said that wrong, didn't I? Really it's up the scale 1 note and then chromatically up to the next chord. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so one more time, 2-5-1 in B flat, up the scale, chromatic, to that next one, okay? All right, second melodic lick. This time we're going to arpeggiate the chords before we chromatically approach the next one. So in other words, on the C minor 7 chord, let's stick with 2-5-1 in B flat major. On the C minor 7 chord, I'm going to go up the triad, the minor triad, so C, E flat, G, and then I'm going to drop chromatically down to F. Okay, check it out. Okay, and then I can do that same thing on the F if I want to. 1, 3, 5, chromatic down. Okay. Here it is in succession. Arpeggio, chromatic down, arpeggio, chromatic down. Okay, it's got some nice movement in it, all right? Kind of changing directions and then approaching the chords. Remember, it's all about getting to the next chord, not exploring the chord you're on, okay? All right, lick number 3 is going to be that same lick, but in inversion. So in this one, we're going to be, when our chords move in fourths, we're actually going to be going down a fifth instead of going up a fourth, okay? So same chords, C minor 7, F, B flat, right? But I'm going to drop from the root to the third, down to the third of the chord. So the same arpeggio, 1, 3, 5, but I'm putting the 1 up an octave. Check it out. 1, C, 3, which is E flat, and then G chromatically down, okay? Check it out. And then I'm going to do the same thing. You do the same thing with the F. Down to the third, which is A, and then up to the fifth, okay? Cool, right? All right, so here it is in succession. All right, getting a little bit of chromatic movement in there. Now that you've got both of those licks in inversion, you can do one going up from the root and one going down. So the second lick and then the third lick. Check it out. Up the arpeggio and then down the arpeggio. Now you're starting to get some really nice movement through those chords. Okay? Cool. Okay, the fourth lick is going to be for when you have 2 chords in one measure. Okay, so a 2-beat chord, a 2-beat chord. So let's say we have a 2-5-1 again in B flat major, and it's just 2 beats of C, 2 beats of F, 2 beats of B flat. So C, F, B flat, okay? This one is a really, really common one, and I'm going to show you 2 variations for it. This is just going to be to half-step approach both chords from either up or below the chord. So let's go from C, the root, and then I'm going to half-step from above the F, so F sharp, to F, and then let's do the same thing for B flat. Half-step above it, and to the B flat. So this one has a nice little angle to it. Gives you a little bit of an angular sound. Check it out. Okay? Now I can also do it from below. So I can vary it by doing C to E to F, and then I can do it below the other chord. Okay? Now the magic of this is when you start to mix them up. All right? Check it out. And it gets even more magical when you're doing multiple 2/5s in a row. So a lot of times in a tune, still in the key of B flat, we might have D minor 7 to G 7, and then a C minor 7 to F 7, and then resolving on B flat, right? Well, check it out when I start mixing these up and approaching all the chords that way. Check it out. Okay? Or pretty hip, right? It's a lot better than this. It's not bad, but it just lacks something. It just doesn't have the momentum. It's just not as smooth, okay? Using these chromatic approaches really helps your walking bass line kind of skate along on the tempo, especially when we're going fast, right? Right? Instead of kind of trying to get to all the chord tones, that's really hard. And actually, I want to just tell you, I just broke one of my cardinal rules. Just now, I just noticed in myself. This is something I remind myself all the time. So I guess I'm giving you a bonus piece of advice here and really just reminding myself for the millionth time. The faster you go, the faster the tempo is when you're playing walking bass, the more relaxed you should be. So I could tell that my body was just very demonstrative on that last time. But when you play walking bass, when you play walking bass at a fast tempo, the faster you go, the more you want to relax. Breathe and relax. I forget this all the time, and it makes me sound tense like I just did, okay? So let's take a tune. I'm going to play through a little bit of a chorus of There Will Never Be Another You, okay? And I'm just going to demonstrate maybe around like 200 BPM. Let me grab my metronome real quick so that you can actually hear that. All right, I'm going to put the metronome on 2 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is like a medium up tempo, right? 1, 2, and I'm going to try to be as relaxed as possible. Trying to relax as much as possible. And again, notice my dynamics, right? My dynamics are mezzo piano. It makes the tempo feel like it's kind of gliding along rather than walking really fast, okay? So almost like gliding bass over walking bass, right? Okay. Yeah, that was fun. Hope you got something out of that, some good nuggets out of that. Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe. Yeah, see you on the next one.